This is Firebase. I'm your host, Gary French. On tonight's show, I believe we have a powerful show for you. A lot of great information. A few weeks ago, we had Joe Dedman from Monty's Plant Food on with us, and from an audience response, it was very positive for you and well received. Our views on YouTube were just very strong. As I'm thinking about that, I want you to make sure that if you're going to view our show on social media, especially YouTube, that you go and you like the show and you make sure you share it with other people as well. Have you ever wondered about our country falling victim to another nation? I remember years ago watching about the Red Threat, about how the former Soviet Union would invade the United States of America and take over our country. There's a lot of movies that came out. There was a movie back from the 80s called War Games, where a computer-simulated attack on our nation resulted in a response of our own military against a fictitious enemy. Well, my friends, tonight I want to tell you that there are enemies that want to see our demise. There are countries that want to see the United States overthrown and thrown into the garbage bin, I guess, of history and society. And I hope that you're asking yourself, who in the world is he talking about? Let me tell you, China. China does not wish us well at all. They seek to overthrow our nation, as does a lot of other socialist, Marxist, communist-leaning countries. They think that the land of the free and the home of the brave needs to be overthrown and taken over. Well, we're seeing that, and we're seeing countries come against us, no more so, no more evident, no more vocal than that of the Communist Chinese Party. Welcome, Joe, to our show tonight. Glad that you're with me tonight.
Yes, I'm glad to be back.
You know, I wanted you back on the show because we could talk about Monty's Plant Food as well. And as a matter of fact, I'm waiting for Monty's to decide to become a sponsor of our show or throw a commercial for us. However, let me say this. The reason that I've invited you back is I saw an article the other day, and the article was just fascinating to me. And folks, here's what the article and the premise was all talking about. China buying farmland in the United States of America. And it seems China, along with Bill Gates, is owning a lot of farmland here in America. And what is not so well known or publicized about it is that they're purchasing farmland next to military installations. A couple of questions for you here this evening. Have you heard anything from your local contacts, from your farmers and that are, some of your customers? Any concern that they have about the Chinese buying farmland in the United States?
Oh, yeah. A lot of the farmers will voice that to me, that they're concerned about a recent purchase. Maybe a farmland went up for sale, and before they even had a chance maybe to go and look and, hey, I'd like to have that land, all of a sudden it's been sold.
Right.
And lo and behold, usually it's, they cover things up and they make it where you can't find out real easy, but if you dig deep enough, well, it was purchased through an entity out of China.
That seems to me very, very concerning that China would be buying farmland. But do you see, or you think, or do you have any thoughts? Is there something deeper behind all of this? Is there another reason that China is buying farmland? Surely they just need more potatoes, Joe. Hungry people, I know that they are.
Yes, they definitely need food. But they also are destroying a lot of their land over there as well. And so are they buying land up for their own benefit? No, I don't think that's the case. China is and we've known this for years. I mean, even like you're talking about when we were kids, we heard about China and what they do and so forth, and that they work kind of covertly. And sure enough, they have the largest military presence in the world, but I don't really think they want to go to war because they have won and are still winning a psychological war.
Yeah, that's true.
Even here in the United States.
Yeah.
And so when they do purchase land, and usually it's beside or near some kind of a military facility where they can tap into things, spy on us, and get all this information that they want.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, yeah, they'll probably lease it out to a farmer or somebody else to raise some crops or something on, or they may not. But at the same time, the more that this happens throughout our country, it gains them more control over our country. Because let's just say they buy up enough land, and by the way, they're buying it in what we call the Corn Belt. That's the richest part of our country.
Right.
So through Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Illinois. So they're buying up good, productive farmland. If they decided to take that out of production, you see how that could turn around and cripple us as a nation.
I do, personally, I do.
Yeah.
But Joe, from the leftist and even from some Republicans, they talk all the time that we're in a global economy, and that if we're going to succeed in our land, that we need to. I so hate this. You got to get with the program, and you just got to, just accept the fact that those things are happening. I remember when I was a kid, Mom would tell me, "Eat the spinach. There's children in China." Of course, as a country guy, over in China.
Yeah, your mother talked to my mother too.
Yeah, that's true. And I remember one time saying something to my mom, well, if the Chinese want my spinach, let's send that to them.
Yeah.
But I only said that once.
Yeah.
Praise God, I still have my teeth. What's the danger? What's the harm of this global economy? It sounds good on the surface, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Sounds good on the surface. But the big focus becomes, and this is where we talked about it last time, that people in high enough places in our government that does not understand agriculture, they believe that, well, so many people in America, the younger generation, believe that the food comes from Kroger. The farmer doesn't really have anything to do with that. Yeah. And yet, one day when the shortage would hit, where are they going to find food? Well, they're going to find food on a farm, not Kroger, because we've already experienced the empty shelves.
Yeah, I was about to comment to you, Joe, that we're already seeing empty shelves. You can go into any local store right now, in whether it's beef or pork or chicken, but you see a lot of empty shelves that are there, and everybody's complaining about the food prices going up. And friends, let me just tell you that if you want prices to go down, stop electing Democrats and stop electing Republicans that are not constitutional-minded people. We've got too many knucklehead politicians that are only building their legacy and planning for their retirement. It seems, I know I'm going to have some people not like this, but it just seems like we've got far too many empty-headed politicians that are only concerned about filling their pocketbook right now. Joe, what? Am I off base? Am I just a fringe conservative lunatic?
No, I think we're seeing that now. I mean, a lot of it is blatantly in the news. Well, recently, as Mrs. Pelosi's had the advantage of knowing something ahead of time and bought a whole lot of stock, or her husband did.
Yeah, you're not talking about insider trading, are you?
No. Some people have called it that, but I think it was something else. But anyhow, they got rich. Oh, yeah. But if we go all the way back, let's go back to the founding of our country. You mentioned about establishing in a constitution. Our forefathers are the ones that founded our country, many times funded our own government with their assets to keep it going. It wasn't about making so much money as it was establishing the republic that we lived in then and founded on. But we have now progressed so far away from that it's about making money. And really the focus is on money, not so much what can we do to improve the American people's lifestyles and their health and their well-being. No, that's like 5th or 6th or 10th down the line.
Yeah, it is. I remember many years ago, and this was, forgive me, folks, for mentioning this name, but Hillary Clinton said something about it takes a village. And she was talking about it takes a village to raise up your children. And that's part of the mantra from the left is that they want you to be part of the collective. It sort of makes me think of a science fiction TV show, Star Trek, about the Borg. You had to be part of the collective and follow what they tell you to do. There's a danger in in all of this, just sort of following the mindset and stop
Yeah.
being an independent thinking American, valuing our Constitution as an example.
Yeah, and that's kind of become prevalent today, but not too many years ago, there was communities, and we're talking smaller communities, and we did look out for each other.
Right.
We knew
Right.
when the person 2 or 3 houses down was sick, and my mother would make chicken soup or something, and have me to go take it to them.
Yeah.
Well, we were looking out for each other. That is totally different than this psychology that they're thinking about raising a village.
Yeah. Well, the difference, Joe, is that you're talking about Christian values
Yeah.
of caring for your brother or your sister.
Yeah.
And what the Marxists want to do is say, we will force you to take care of your brother or sister because you're just not smart enough
Right.
to do it.
Right.
And I think that seems to be the same kind of understanding about in the farmland. You're not smart enough to do it. So, and that's why we have that stupid paying farmers not to grow crops.
Yep.
And we've got people that are starving to death right now and
Right.
shelves that are empty. And
Right. Right.
folks, we're talking with Joe Dedman this evening. We're talking about China and the intentional attacks that they have on our land. And they're wanting to take food out of your mouth. Don't you dare let them do that. Stay with us. We'll continue this thought-provoking conversation after the break. Welcome back to Firebase. Talking this evening with Joe Dedman with Monty's Plant Food. Joe, we were talking before the break about China and how they're buying up farmland here in the United States, and that's of great concern for me. I just think that it's dangerous because, especially with the current administration, they're putting their pocketbook first. They're putting their career first. They're putting their legacy first, and it's so unlike the Trump administration of America first. I'll give you an example of the. It's not really that clever a way. It's very deceitful and it's very demonic. Back in the 1990s, Congress introduced legislation, and it had bipartisan support, and it passed. And it was called the Defense of Marriage Act. Right now, there's legislation that has already passed the House of Representatives, and it is up before the Senate right now, and it's called the Respect of Marriage Act. And the Respect of Marriage Act is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Don't worry about this hand while this hand is picking your pocket. And Joe, what they're doing with that Respect of Marriage Act, it sounds pretty. It sounds nice, but it's deceptive, it's demonic, and what it will do, it will change the definition of marriage. And they're doing it with phrasing and nicety, and the American politician seems to be dumb enough to go along with it. And friends, I know we've got some good politicians up there. I know we do. But you and I both know that they're not there before very long until they're as dirty as everyone else. We've got some politicians, some senators that I'm not going to name that have been in office way too long. And they're concerned about themselves, and they're making money on the Chinese and the shipping industry. Joe, what's the big hubbub here, or maybe the big rub about these politicians that are in office that do not have a background in agriculture? They don't even have background in finances. And after a while, they just sort of let anything go. They're not concerned about the American public anymore, at least of all the American farmer.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably have seen a few movies or something on TV where they, Mr. Smith goes to Washington or something, and they can easily phrase things to a younger politician that's coming in to represent us, and he goes up there or she goes up there with the best intentions because we've told the people have told them before they ever left and won, go up there and do this. Hey, make sure you change the laws so it protects us. And no sooner than they're there, the ones that's been there for so long already know all the tricks. And they don't want to expose the tricks, but they want to say things, phrase things in a manner that makes that new politician think it's okay. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm on board with you like
Yeah.
that. And before you know it, even though he may vote for it, then when the reality comes out, he goes, "Well, this is going against the American people."
You're absolutely right.
But even when it comes to the farming, so because we talked about them, but they don't know completely about agriculture, is then because they don't know about it, then they don't really know about how much farmers and farmland and the corn belt and the food belt in our nation contributes not only to America but to the world, because I've told you before, the American farmers has the highest production in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It is. In fact, what happens after a while is some of the big companies, and by the way, not only is China buying up farmland, they're investing in some of the big companies that also associates with. In fact, they bought about 3 or 4 years ago one of the huge chemical companies called Syngenta.
Yeah.
Okay, so Syngenta furnishes the chemicals and everything to the farmers that they use. But they also, in turn, invest in marketing. So not only are they buying the land, they control the marketing of the grain. And as usual, a whole new episode would be how that farmers get paid so much less at harvest. And your friend Bob over here is farms, and he takes a load of corn in today, and he gets $3.
Right.
And Bill takes a load in tomorrow, he gets $3.50. Why? Because they manipulated the markets and all the time, and it's
Joe,
not really fair.
Joe, I think people, as an example right now, Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin ought to be ashamed of themselves for pushing higher taxes. And they're saying it's not higher taxes. In the same thought process, in the same vein, they'll say there's nothing wrong with the Chinese buying farmland.
Of course
because what they'll do, they'll become the owners, just as the Chinese own golf courses, the Chinese own the National Basketball Association. That's the reason alone right there not to go watch an NBA game. But then they're going to say, but the farmers will still have a job. They'll still be managing the farmland. They'll still be producing the wheat and the corn and the soybean. But is that true?
Well, to some degree it is, because go back now and understand where China's coming from, because this is where people are kind of fooled. What is China's ulterior motive out of all of this?
That's a great question, Joe.
Is control
Yes.
of our country, and they actually want control of the world. They admit it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when they come in here and they buy the farmland, and they're associating with Mr. Schumer or whoever, one of the Congress people, and they go, hey, we'll make sure you get a really good deal on that farmland. Guess what? We're going to take care of you, Mr. Whoever.
Right.
And so the cycle starts, and then if the farmer starts to hurt, then our government says, hey, we'll take care of that. We'll subsidize him to keep him happy, to keep him in business. But it's only meager.
And then that's still being manipulated by the Chinese.
Exactly. So they are still controlling behind the scenes, even though we don't know it, we don't see it, because so much of this is hid from the American public, because for one thing, nobody in Washington wants you to know these things. It's like bless his heart, President Trump exposed a lot of these things, which has gotten people on board now to say, you know what, I do need to run to be on the school board. I do need to run to be a mayor, because our people are out of control and they don't really know what they're doing. And so when you take the heartland, or the people that make their living from the soil, they know exactly what's going on, because it's a very, very hard life. They only get meager income to really just survive from one year to the next. They don't ever get rich.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could make our farmers rich, they would be buying the farmland before the Chinese do.
So I think part of the insidious attack here, as an example, what's going through my mind, China buys farmland. And let's just say you and I are farmers. We have adjacent farms, and they buy our farmland. And they say, hey, listen, we're going to pay the taxes and all that. All you do is farm. And we're going to pay you, and let's just pick a figure. We're going to pay you $100,000. I'm going to get $100,000. For the farmer, that could be a huge salary increase, especially if they've been struggling.
Sure.
But then on top of that, whatever they're producing, they're going to charge more for that.
They can in the long run.
And and then the money's going to be going not just to you, it'll be going back to China, and they're going to use that kind of income to gin up organizations that are against America.
Exactly. But remember, see, China is this huge entity, and they're very, very patient, very slow. And they have all this income coming in from the United States. Well, then they turn around. In fact, they're even buying some of our national debt. Okay, so they're buying up some of that so they can have control. It's all about control, and they're teaching the control to the very ones that's in Washington because they're trying to control us.
Whether it's the Chinese or the World Health Organization or the CDC here in America, or the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, or the news media, it always seems to be about control, Joe.
Yeah, it is.
And always seems to be about money. Who can make the most money? Folks, we're talking with Joe Dedman here this evening with Monty's. I really love this man, and I love the common sense approach that he brings, can I say it this way, to the market. His company helps the farmer, helps Americans, and that's what this show is all about. We will wrap up this show this evening about the overt attack from the Chinese and what we can do to take our stand against it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Wow, what a program tonight. Joe and I have been talking during the break. We've talked about just so many different items. The governmental corruption that's going on. We've talked this evening on air about the Chinese buying up the farmland. Joe, methinks there's a lot more to all of this purchasing of the farmland than what we're being told right now. And I think the American people need to be aware of what's happening. That's why this next election is so vital. Do you think that if we see I hadn't thought about this, and folks, this is not part of our discussion, but it just came into my mind. Joe, do you think that if there's really a red wave, a turn to Christian conservative values in the next election, that we'll start to see a change? Maybe at least a holding off of China purchasing, or that seems to be the easiest way for them to take over our land is by buying the farmlands. But do you think that if we can turn around some things in the next election, that will either slow it down or we can see a bright light?
I think there's always hope if you put the right people in the right place, that it has a lot of common sense and it can figure these things out, and then they could put stops in place and say, hey, you're not going to come in and start to take over our country. The other ironic thing, I mean, and I'm like you, the thought just came in my head. That's
why I love talking with you, Joe.
Where did the COVID come from? China.
Yeah.
All right. And what happened through the COVID was total control, right?
Exactly.
Hey, you got to do this. You got to do that. You can't do this. You can't do that.
While you're talking, I'm looking at my notes, Joe. Keep on.
And then where we know that what China is after in the whole long run is total control. When you and I were talking during the break, okay, they're buying up part of the national debt. They have control. When they finally get control of enough farmland or enough businesses that they buy into, and they can eventually go to our government and say, okay, we have control now. Here's what you're going to do. We will relieve your debt that we bought, but now you surrender control to us over whatever it is.
Joe, you made me think. There was a recent report from the former head of the CDC, Dr. Robert Redfield, and he commented that the Wuhan lab was the subject of a report back in 2014 when they were already developing a virus out of bats. And this is documented information that said that they were already doing that to weaponize these things against the United States of America. And what's sad is that you got people like Fauci, and I know this is not about farmland right now, but folks, this is stuff that's absolutely important for you to be aware of.
It's all tied together.
It is tied together.
It is.
There is subterfuge. There is backroom politics. There are people that are in office that have one thing in mind. That's to make money and to keep you subjugated. That's why you got to get vaccinated. Then you got to have a boost. And then you got to have another booster. People like Dr. Anthony Fauci, he's got booster after booster after booster, and it's just he got sick, and President Biden got sick, and now we're talking about the Chinese wanting to take over even the farmland. Joe, where does this stuff end?
Well, I really think the American public, and there's got to be a faction of our country, hopefully more than half, that can put two and two together and say, you know what, we now see what's been going on behind the scenes, and we're going to put a stop to it, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to start running for the school boards. We're going to start running for mayor. We're going to start being on the superintendents or whatever, and we're going to stop this stuff that's destroying our children, destroying our young adults, and even destroying us today that know better because we grew up in it. We know that this is wrong.
Yes.
Because it just does not make sense at all. 2 and 2 does not equal 4 now. It's just gone crazy.
I know. It's crazy. Joe, thanks for being on tonight. You're a good friend. I appreciate you. And
thank you.
We're going to lean on Joe Dedman to make sure that he gives us up-to-date information about what's happening with the farmland and how we can take a stand. Let me finish the program tonight this way. Friends, there is hope. Lift your eyes to the hills from where your help comes from. It comes from the Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Make sure that you tune in next week for another powerful, life-changing episode of Firebase. Thanks for watching this most recent episode. Click below the like button. Provide any comments that you like. Also, we will get back to you as soon as we can after you write to us at P.O. Box 39, Perry Park, Kentucky, 40363. Also, let us know if you like really good coffee, and we'll send that out to you as soon as we possibly can. What's the name of the coffee? Firebase.